The diplomatic dance, the stars looked different when you knew you were not alone. Commander Veltar of the Zenthari race stood on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's voice, watching the yellow star grow larger on the main screen. This was his 47th first contact mission, and he expected it to go like all the others. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the third planet," reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Zara. Her blue skin shimmered under the bridge lights as she worked at her console. "They are requesting our intentions and offering to meet us." Veltar nodded. This was normal. Most species became nervous when they first saw galactic ships. His own people had done the same thing 300 years ago when the Galactic Council first arrived in Zenthari space. Now the Zenthari were respected members of the Council, helping other species find their place in the galaxy. "Send our standard greeting," Veltar ordered. "Tell them we come in peace and wish to establish friendly relations." Dr. Kethun looked up from his science station. The elderly Morthak scientist had been on more first contact missions than anyone else in the fleet. His gray fur was marked with the scars of age, and his 6 eyes held the wisdom of centuries. "The energy readings from their planet are interesting, Commander. They have achieved nuclear power and basic spaceflight. Their technology level is exactly what we expected from the preliminary scans." The commander walked over to study the readings. Earth showed all the signs of a developing civilization. Cities glowed on the night side of the planet. Ships moved between the worlds of their system, though slowly by galactic standards. Everything looked normal for a species just beginning to reach for the stars. "Any military presence?" Veltar asked. "Some defensive satellites around their homeworld," Kethun replied. "A few small patrol craft in the outer system. Nothing that would threaten a galactic vessel. Their most advanced ships can barely reach 10% of light speed." This was exactly what Veltar had expected. Young species always focused on exploring their own system before they learned to travel between the stars. The humans would be like all the others, amazed by galactic technology and eager to join the greater community. A day later, the meeting took place in the space between the 4th and 5th planets. The humans arrived in a ship they called the Olive Branch. It was sleek and well-designed, but tiny compared to the Harmony's voice. Veltar could have fit a dozen human ships inside his cargo bay. The human delegation came aboard through the main docking port. Their leader was a woman named Ambassador Sarah Chen. She was smaller than Veltar had expected. Humans were not physically impressive compared to most galactic species. But she moved with confidence and her dark eyes showed intelligence. "Welcome aboard," Veltar said, using the translation device that made communication possible. "I am Commander Veltar, speaking for the Galactic Council. We are honored to make first contact with humanity." Ambassador Chen smiled. It was a pleasant expression that made her face appear friendly and open. "The honor is ours, Commander. Humanity has wondered for centuries if we were alone in the universe. Today we have our answer." The formal ceremonies went exactly as planned. Both sides exchanged cultural gifts and basic information about their peoples. The humans presented art, music, and literature that showed their creative nature. The galactic delegation shared star charts and basic scientific data that demonstrated the size and complexity of galactic civilization. Dr. Kethun studied the humans carefully during these exchanges. They seemed appropriately impressed by what they learned about the galaxy. Their questions were intelligent but not too advanced. They wanted to know about trade, about other species, about the basic structure of galactic society. Normal curiosity for a new species. "How many worlds does the Galactic Council control?" Ambassador Chen asked during one of their conversations. "Control is not the right word," Veltar explained patiently. "We guide. We help young species find their place in the galactic community. Over 400 worlds are now part of our civilization, and all of them benefit from the peace and prosperity we maintain." "That sounds wonderful," Chen replied. "How do you maintain peace across so many different species?" Veltar was pleased by the question. It showed that humans understood the importance of order. "We have learned that some species need more guidance than others. Our enforcement fleets help resolve disputes and ensure that galactic law is followed. Most species adapt quickly to their new role." He noticed that the humans exchanged quick glances when he mentioned enforcement, but this was normal. Young species often worried about their independence. They would learn that the benefits of galactic membership far outweighed any small losses of autonomy. Over the next few days, the talks continued in a friendly atmosphere. The humans were polite, curious, and respectful. They asked about technology transfers, about trade opportunities, about what would be expected of them as new members. Veltar answered their questions carefully, following the protocols that had worked successfully for centuries. "Your species shows great promise," he told Ambassador Chen on the third day of talks. "The Galactic Council is prepared to offer humanity full membership in our community." Chen leaned forward with interest. "What would that involve?" "Standard integration procedures," Veltar explained. "Technology sharing, cultural exchange programs, and acceptance of galactic authority in matters affecting interstellar relations. Most species find the transition quite smooth." "I see," Chen said thoughtfully. "And if a species had concerns about certain aspects of integration?" Veltar had heard this question before. "Young species always worried about losing their independence. The Council has learned that some resistance is natural," he said kindly. "That's why we have procedures in place to help species adapt. The benefits always become clear once integration is complete." Behind Ambassador Chen, another member of the human delegation, a man they called Colonel Harrison, made a note on his personal device. Veltar thought this was probably just record-keeping, though he noticed that several humans had been taking very detailed notes throughout their conversations. "We appreciate your patience with our questions," Chen said. "Humanity has always been careful about important decisions." "Of course," Veltar replied, "though I should mention that the Council prefers to complete integration procedures quickly. Delays can sometimes complicate the process." "We understand completely," Chen said with another of her pleasant smiles. "We just want to make sure we fully understand what's being offered." As the formal sessions ended for the day, Veltar felt satisfied with the progress. The humans were behaving exactly like every other species at this stage. Curious, slightly nervous, but clearly impressed by galactic civilization. Tomorrow he would present them with the integration package, and within a few days, humanity would take its place as the newest member of the galactic community. Dr. Kethun approached him as the humans returned to their ship. "They seem very thorough in their questions," the old scientist observed. "Just being careful," Veltar replied. "Remember, they're still trying to understand how vast the galaxy really is. Once they see the full benefits of membership, they'll be as eager as any other species to join us." The commander watched the small human ship detach from his vessel and drift back toward their fleet. Everything was proceeding normally. Soon, humanity would learn what it truly meant to be part of something greater than themselves. Subtle warnings. The second day of negotiations began with what seemed like routine discussions. Ambassador Chen and her team arrived on schedule, bringing with them more examples of human culture and science. But Dr. Kethun noticed something different in their questions. "Tell us more about your enforcement protocols," Chen asked during the morning session. "How do you handle species that might have different ideas about galactic law?" Commander Veltar found the question slightly odd. Most species asked about trade routes or technology sharing at this stage, but he answered politely, "The Council maintains peace fleets stationed throughout galactic space. When disputes arise, we send mediators first. If mediation fails, we use other methods to restore order." "Other methods?" Colonel Harrison asked from his position behind Chen. The human military officer had been quiet during most of the previous day's talks. "Economic pressure, usually," Veltar explained. "Trade restrictions, technology limitations, that sort of thing. Most problems resolve quickly once a species understands the consequences of disrupting galactic peace." Chen nodded as if this was perfectly reasonable. "And if economic pressure doesn't work?" "Military intervention becomes necessary," Veltar said. "But this is rare. Most species prefer cooperation to conflict." The humans exchanged another of their quick glances. Dr. Kethun was beginning to notice a pattern in these silent communications. The humans seemed to be sharing information without speaking, which suggested a level of coordination he hadn't expected from such a young species. "How large are these peace fleets?" Chen asked casually, as if the question was just curious interest. Lieutenant Zara looked up from her console with surprise. This was definitely not a typical first contact question, but Veltar answered anyway. "Large enough to maintain order. The Third Galactic Fleet, for example, contains over 200 vessels of various classes." "Impressive," Chen said. "What kind of weapons do they carry?" Now Veltar was definitely puzzled. Standard galactic armament, Plasma cannons, quantum torpedoes, defense screens. Why do you ask? Professional curiosity, Colonel Harrison replied before Chen could answer. I'm a military historian. I find it fascinating how different civilizations approach the problem of maintaining peace. This explanation seemed reasonable, but Dr. Kethen noticed that the colonel had been taking very detailed notes about fleet sizes and weapon systems. Most military historians would be more interested in tactics and strategy than specific technical details. During the afternoon session, the humans asked about trade routes between galactic sectors. They wanted to know which systems were major transportation hubs, how goods moved between distant regions, and what kind of security existed along the main shipping lanes. The Kepler corridor handles most trade between the galactic core and the outer rim, Veltar explained, pulling up a star map on the main display. It's heavily defended, of course. Pirates sometimes try to raid merchant convoys. How heavily defended? Chen asked. 3 permanent patrol fleets, Lieutenant Zara answered, plus automated defense platforms at key jump points. Chen studied the map carefully. These jump points? They're the only way to travel quickly between regions? The most efficient way, Veltar confirmed. Ships can travel through normal space, but it takes much longer. Most galactic commerce depends on the jump network. The human ambassador nodded thoughtfully. So controlling the jump points would give someone significant influence over galactic trade. In theory, yes, Veltar said slowly. But all jump points are under council authority. No single species controls interstellar commerce. Of course, Chen said with one of her smiles. I was just trying to understand how the galactic economy works. But Dr. Kethen was beginning to feel uneasy. The humans' questions were becoming more and more specific. They wanted to know about military deployments, defensive positions, and strategic choke points. These were not the typical concerns of a species preparing to join galactic civilization. During a break in the formal negotiations, the old scientist approached Commander Veltar privately. Sir, I think we should consider the possibility that the humans have ulterior motives. Veltar looked surprised. What do you mean? Their questions are too focused on military and strategic matters, Kethen explained. Most species ask about culture, science, and trade opportunities. These humans seem more interested in our defensive capabilities. They're just being thorough, Veltar replied. Remember, they come from a single world. They're probably worried about being overwhelmed by galactic civilization. It's natural for them to want to understand how power works in the galaxy. Perhaps, Kethen said, though he didn't sound convinced. But I've noticed something else. Their ship designs are more advanced than we initially thought. The material science alone suggests capabilities beyond what we'd expect from a pre-FTL civilization. Veltar considered this. Are you suggesting they're more technologically advanced than our scans indicated? I'm suggesting they might be deliberately concealing their true capabilities, Kethen said carefully. Species sometimes do this during first contact. They want to assess potential threats before revealing their strength. The commander shook his head. That's impossible. Our sensors show no hidden fleets, no advanced shipyards, no signs of military buildup. They have exactly what we'd expect from a young spacefaring civilization. Unless their sensor technology is better than ours, Kethen pointed out. Veltar stared at the old scientist. Are you seriously suggesting that a species that hasn't even left their own solar system has developed stealth technology superior to galactic standards? I'm suggesting we be cautious, Kethen replied. There's something different about these humans. I can't put my finger on it, but they don't feel like other young species. When the negotiations resumed, Chen asked about territorial boundaries between different galactic regions. She wanted to know how disputes over planetary systems were resolved, what happened when species claimed the same worlds, and how the Council determined which civilization had legitimate authority over contested space. The Council mediates all territorial disputes, Veltar explained. We have standard procedures for determining legitimate claims. Generally, the species that can most effectively develop and defend a system is awarded control. Effectively defend? Colonel Harrison asked. What does that mean exactly? Military capability is one factor, Veltar admitted, along with technological development, population size, and economic potential. The Council tries to ensure that worlds are controlled by species capable of making the best use of them. Chen leaned back in her chair. So strength matters in galactic politics? Strength is respected, Veltar said carefully, but it must be used responsibly. The Council doesn't tolerate aggressive expansion or unprovoked attacks. Define unprovoked, Harrison said quietly. Veltar found this question disturbing. Attacks on Council members or their interests. Interference with galactic trade. Refusal to accept legitimate Council authority. Those sorts of things. I see, Chen said. And the Council determines what constitutes legitimate authority? The Council represents the collective will of all member species, Veltar replied, though he was beginning to feel defensive about questions that had never bothered him before. As the day's sessions ended, Dr. Kethan approached the humans with a question of his own. If I may ask, Ambassador Chen, what is humanity's primary concern about joining galactic civilization? Chen looked at him thoughtfully before answering. We want to make sure we understand what we're getting into, Dr. Kethan. Humanity has learned from experience that it's important to fully understand any agreement before committing to it. Experience? Kethan asked. We have a long history on our world, Chen explained. We've learned that sometimes what seems like a generous offer comes with hidden costs. We prefer to know all the terms up front. Colonel Harrison stood beside her. My people have a saying, Dr. Kethan. Trust but verify. We believe in building strong relationships, but we also believe in being prepared. Prepared for what? Kethan asked. Chen smiled, but this time it didn't seem quite as warm as before. For whatever might happen. The galaxy is a big place and we're new to it. It pays to be careful. As the humans returned to their ship, Veltar found himself troubled by the day's conversations. The humans were asking all the right questions if they were planning to join galactic civilization. But they were also asking all the right questions if they were planning something else entirely. Tomorrow we present them with the integration package, he told Dr. Kethan. Then we'll see what they're really made of. The ultimatum. The third day of negotiations began with a ceremony that Commander Veltar had performed dozens of times before. The formal presentation of the Galactic Council integration package was always a moment of celebration for young species. Today, however, something felt different. Ambassador Chen and her delegation arrived as scheduled, but there was a subtle change in their demeanor. They seemed more alert, more watchful than they had been in previous days. Colonel Harrison positioned himself where he could see all the exits, and the other human officers seemed to be paying attention to things beyond the immediate conversation. Today marks a historic moment for humanity, Veltar announced, activating the holographic display that showed the standard integration documents. The Galactic Council hereby offers your species full membership in our civilized community. The display showed page after page of terms and conditions, all written in the formal language that the Council used for such occasions. Ambassador Chen studied the documents carefully, scrolling through section after section while her team took notes. These are quite comprehensive, she said after several minutes. Perhaps we could discuss some of the key points. Of course, Veltar replied. Though I should mention that these terms are standard for all new member species. The Council has refined these procedures over centuries of successful integrations. Chen nodded politely. I understand. Could you explain the technology restrictions outlined in Section 12? Veltar brought up the relevant section. New member species are limited in their access to certain advanced technologies until they demonstrate cultural maturity. This prevents dangerous weapons from falling into the wrong hands and ensures that technological development proceeds in a responsible manner. How long do these restrictions typically remain in place? Colonel Harrison asked. Usually between 50 and 100 years, Lieutenant Zara answered. Some species adapt faster than others, and Section 18 mentions mandatory cultural modifications. Chen continued. What does that involve? Dr. Kethan leaned forward. Nothing dramatic, Ambassador. We help species eliminate dangerous cultural practices that might threaten galactic peace. Excessive militarism, territorial aggression, that sort of thing. Most species find that these changes improve their overall quality of life. Define excessive militarism, Harrison said quietly. Military forces beyond those needed for basic planetary defense, Veltar explained. Weapons research programs, aggressive expansion into neighboring systems. The Council has found that these behaviors often lead to conflicts that disrupt galactic peace. Chen made a note on her personal device. And the resource tribute requirements in Section 23? A modest contribution to maintain galactic infrastructure, Veltar said. Roads must be maintained, as it were. The jump network, communication systems, defense fleets, These things require resources from all member species. How modest? Chen asked. 15% of gross planetary product paid annually, Lieutenant Zara replied. Most species find this quite reasonable given the benefits they receive. The humans exchanged another of their silent communications. Dr. Kethen was now certain that they had some form of nonverbal coordination system, possibly technological enhancements that allowed them to share information without speaking. Section 31 discusses council authority over interstellar relations. Chen continued. This would mean that humanity couldn't establish independent contact with non-council species. The council must approve all external contacts, Veltar confirmed. We've learned that uncontrolled first contact situations can lead to dangerous misunderstandings. It's better to have experienced diplomats handle these matters. And if we wanted to establish colonies outside our current system? Harrison asked. All expansion must be approved by the council, Dr. Kethen explained. We help species identify suitable worlds and ensure that colonization doesn't conflict with existing claims or strategic considerations. Ambassador. Chen closed the holographic display and looked directly at Commander Veltar. These terms essentially place humanity under complete council authority, she said calmly. They integrate humanity into galactic civilization, Veltar corrected. Every species goes through the same process. The Xanthari, the Morthak, the Keplerians, we all accepted these same terms when we joined the council. And if a species chose not to accept these terms? Chen asked. Veltar had been asked this question before, though not often. That would be unfortunate. Species that refuse integration often find themselves isolated from galactic civilization. They miss out on the benefits of membership, and they sometimes make decisions that threaten galactic peace. What happens then? Harrison asked. The council takes whatever steps are necessary to protect its member species, Veltar said carefully. Usually isolated species eventually realize that cooperation is in their best interests. Usually, Chen repeated. And when they don't? Lieutenant Zara looked uncomfortable. The council has enforcement procedures, she said quietly. Could you be more specific? Chen asked. Veltar realized that the conversation was heading in a direction he didn't like. Ambassador Chen, these questions suggest that humanity might be considering refusing our offer. I hope that's not the case. Chen smiled, but it was a different kind of smile than she'd worn during the previous days. We're just making sure we understand all the implications of this decision, Commander. Humanity takes its commitments very seriously, as does the Council, Veltar replied, which is why these terms are non-negotiable. Every species must accept the same conditions. It ensures fairness and prevents dangerous exceptions to galactic law. Non-negotiable, Chen repeated thoughtfully. And how long do we have to consider this offer? Standard protocol allows 48 hours for final decision, Dr. Kethen said. Though most species don't need that long once they understand the benefits of membership. Colonel Harrison made another note on his device. And if we need more time than that? Veltar felt his patience beginning to strain. The Council prefers to complete integration procedures quickly. Delays can lead to complications that are better avoided. What sort of complications? Chen asked. Political instability, Veltar explained. When a species learns about galactic civilization, some individuals become resistant to change. Quick integration prevents these problems from developing. Resistant individuals, Harrison said. How are they handled? The Council has procedures for dealing with troublemakers, Lieutenant Zara said, looking nervous about the direction of the conversation. Ambassador Chen stood up from her chair and walked to the viewport that showed the space around both fleets. For a long moment she stared out at the stars while the galactic delegation waited for her response. Commander Veltar, she said finally, I think there may be a fundamental misunderstanding between our peoples. What do you mean? Veltar asked. Chen turned back toward him. You seem to believe that humanity is a typical pre-FTL civilization that can be easily integrated into your existing power structure. We, on the other hand, were hoping to meet equals who were interested in genuine cooperation. These terms represent genuine cooperation, Veltar said, though his voice carried less certainty than before. No, Commander, Chen replied. These terms represent submission. Humanity doesn't submit. The bridge fell silent. Dr. Kethen felt his suspicions crystallizing into certainty. The humans were not behaving like any species he had encountered before. Ambassador, Veltar said carefully, I hope you're not suggesting that humanity would refuse to join galactic civilization. Chen walked back to her chair but didn't sit down. I'm suggesting that humanity is interested in joining galactic civilization as an equal partner, not as a subordinate client state. The Council doesn't negotiate with individual species, Veltar said firmly. These procedures have worked successfully for over 400 worlds. They will work for humanity as well. Will they? Chen asked quietly. Colonel Harrison touched something on his wrist device. Ambassador, we're receiving a priority communication from Earth. Chen nodded. Put it through to my personal communicator. She listened to something that the galactic delegation couldn't hear, then looked up at Veltar. Commander, I'm afraid we're going to need to cut today's session short. Something has come up that requires our immediate attention. What sort of something? Dr. Keithan asked. Internal matters, Chen replied. We'll resume negotiations tomorrow. As the human delegation prepared to leave, Veltar made a decision that would change everything. Ambassador Chen, I think there may be some confusion about humanity's position in these negotiations. Perhaps a demonstration of galactic capabilities would help clarify the situation. Chen stopped walking and turned back toward him. What sort of demonstration? Lieutenant Zara, Veltar ordered, signal the escort fleet. Have them decloak near the fourth planet. Standard intimidation pattern. Chen's expression didn't change, but Colonel Harrison stepped closer to her position. Intimidation pattern? She asked. Just a reminder of the power that backs up Council authority, Veltar explained. Young species sometimes need to see galactic military capabilities before they fully understand their position. Ambassador Chen looked at him for a long moment, then smiled. It was the most dangerous smile Dr. Kethan had ever seen. The revelation. The human delegation left the Harmony's voice with what seemed like unusual haste. Commander Veltar watched their small ship accelerate back toward their fleet, feeling satisfied that he had finally taken control of the situation. Young species needed to understand their place in the galactic order, and sometimes that required a demonstration of power. Signal the escort fleet, he ordered Lieutenant Zara. Have the Iron Will. Cosmic Justice and Stellar Mandate move to intimidation positions around the fourth planet. Full weapons display, but do not target their vessels. Yes, sir, Zara replied, though she seemed nervous about the escalation. Dr. Keithun approached the command station. Sir, are you certain this is wise? The humans didn't seem intimidated by our previous shows of force. They haven't seen our previous shows of force, Veltar replied. They've seen one diplomatic vessel and a few patrol craft. Wait until they get a look at galactic heavy cruisers with their weapons powered up. That changes most species' perspective very quickly. On the main display, 3 massive shapes began to shimmer into view near Mars. The Galactic Council heavy cruisers were impressive vessels, each one over 600 meters long and bristling with weapons designed to pacify entire star systems. Their hulls gleamed with the blue-white energy of charged plasma cannons, and their quantum torpedo launchers swiveled to demonstrate their readiness for action. Transmission from the human fleet, Lieutenant Zara reported. They're requesting an explanation for our military deployment. Put them through, Veltar ordered. Ambassador Chen's image appeared on the main screen. She was aboard her small diplomatic vessel, but something had changed in her demeanor. The friendly curiosity of the past 3 days had been replaced by cool professionalism. Commander Veltar, she said without preamble, would you care to explain why you've just moved 3 military vessels into threatening positions? A demonstration, Ambassador, Veltar replied. I thought humanity should fully understand the military capabilities that support galactic civilization. I see, Chen said. Her expression was unreadable. And this demonstration is meant to encourage us to accept your non-negotiable terms? It's meant to provide context for your decision, Veltar explained. The Council prefers cooperation, but we are prepared to enforce galactic law if necessary. Chen nodded slowly. Commander, I want to make sure I understand the situation correctly. You're threatening military action against humanity if we don't accept subordinate status in your galactic government. I'm demonstrating the reality of galactic power, Veltar said. Your species can choose to be part of galactic civilization, or you can choose to oppose it. But you cannot choose to ignore it. Interesting, Chen said. She touched something on her command console. Colonel Harrison, please inform Earth Command that we've reached the point of no return. Acknowledged, Ambassador, came Harrison's voice from somewhere off-screen. Chen looked directly at Veltar. Commander, you've just made a very serious mistake. Have I? Veltar asked. You've assumed that humanity is weak, Chen replied. You've assumed that we're alone, and you've assumed that we've been honest with you about our capabilities. Dr. Kethen felt a chill run through his multiple hearts. What do you mean? He asked. Chen smiled, and this time there was no warmth in it at all. I mean that humanity has been aware of galactic civilization for considerably longer than 3 days. We've been watching you, studying your technology, analyzing your military deployments, and preparing for this moment. That's impossible, Veltar said. Our sensors show no advanced human technology, no hidden fleets, no military buildup beyond basic planetary defense. Your sensors, Chen said quietly, are not as good as you think they are. She touched another control on her console. Execute Protocol Omega. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lieutenant Zara gasped and pointed at her sensor display. Commander, energy signatures are appearing throughout the system. Veltar spun around to look at the tactical display. What he saw made no sense. Space around the human solar system was lighting up with contacts that hadn't been there moments before. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. What is that? Dr. Kithun whispered. On the main screen, Ambassador Chen was watching their reactions with obvious satisfaction. That, Dr. Kethen, is the 3rd Fleet of the Terran Defense Force. They've been here all along, waiting in stealth positions throughout the system. The tactical display was now showing energy readings that were impossible. Ships were decloaking around every major planet, emerging from positions that should have been empty space. Some of them were massive, larger than anything in the Galactic Fleet. This is impossible, Veltar repeated. Pre-FTL civilizations don't have stealth technology. Pre-FTL civilizations, Chen said calmly, don't have interstellar colonies either. But humanity has maintained settlements in 17 star systems for the past 40 years. Lieutenant Zara's voice cracked as she read her displays. Sir, the largest contact is directly behind us. It's over a kilometer long. Veltar turned to look at the rear display and felt his confidence crumble. A massive vessel had materialized less than 2 kilometers from the Harmony's voice. It was sleek, predatory, and covered in weapon systems that didn't match any technology in galactic databases. Attention Galactic Council vessels, came a new voice over the communications channel. This is Admiral Marcus Rodriguez of the Terran Defense Force, commanding the battleship Indomitable. You are currently surrounded by elements of the 3rd Fleet. I strongly suggest you reconsider your negotiating position. Dr. Kethen stared at his sensor readings in disbelief. The energy output from that vessel alone exceeds anything in our fleet. How is this possible? Ambassador Chen's image was still on the main screen. It's possible, Dr. Kethen, because humanity approaches problems differently than most species. When we discovered galactic civilization 30 years ago, we didn't announce ourselves and ask for help. We watched, we learned, and we prepared. 30 years? Veltar asked weakly. Our deep space monitoring stations detected galactic traffic in 2355, Chen explained. We've been conducting long-range surveillance of your major trade routes, military deployments, and political structures ever since. We know more about the Galactic Council than most of your member species do. Colonel Harrison's voice came through the channel. Ambassador, we have positive locks on all galactic vessels. Weapons are charged and ready. Understood, Colonel, Chen replied. She looked back at Veltar. Commander, I think it's time for us to have a more honest conversation. Veltar struggled to process what was happening. You've been spying on us for 3 decades? We've been preparing, Chen corrected. Humanity learned long ago that when you meet someone more powerful than yourself, you have 2 choices. You can submit, or you can make yourself strong enough to negotiate as equals. But your technology level, Dr. Kethen began, is considerably more advanced than what we've shown you. Chen finished. Our ships don't use your jump network because we developed our own faster-than-light technology. Our stealth systems are clearly superior to your sensors, and our military doctrine was developed specifically to counter galactic tactics. Admiral Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication system again. Galactic Council Fleet, you are ordered to power down your weapons and prepare to receive boarding parties for inspection. This is outrageous. Veltar finally found his voice. The Council will not tolerate this aggression. What aggression? Chen asked innocently. We're simply defending ourselves from a military threat. You brought weapons into our system and positioned them in threatening formations. Under both galactic and human law, that constitutes an act of war. We were conducting a peaceful demonstration. You were attempting intimidation, Chen replied. And humanity doesn't respond well to intimidation. On the tactical display, more ships continued to appear. The 3 galactic heavy cruisers that had seemed so impressive moments before were now dwarfed by human vessels that seemed to have emerged from nowhere. How many ships do you have? Lieutenant Zara asked in a small voice. In this system? About 400 combat vessels, Chen replied casually. We've been building our fleet for 30 years, Commander. Did you really think we'd been sitting idle all this time? Dr. Kethen looked at his readings again. These energy signatures. Some of these weapon systems are using principles I don't recognize. Humanity has always been good at solving problems in unconventional ways, Chen said. We don't just copy existing technology. We improve on it. Admiral Rodriguez spoke again. Galactic Council vessels. You have 60 seconds to comply with our orders or we will take action to neutralize the threat you represent. Commander Veltar realized that everything had changed. The confident first contact mission had become a disaster of unprecedented proportions. For the first time in galactic history, a primitive species had not only refused integration, but had demonstrated the ability to back up their refusal with force. Ambassador Chen, he said desperately, surely we can resolve this situation through negotiation. Chen's smile returned, but now it looked predatory rather than friendly. Of course we can, Commander. But this time we'll be negotiating as equals. The Council will never accept the new balance. The bridge of the Harmony's voice had become very quiet. Commander Veltar stared at the tactical display, trying to understand how his routine first contact mission had turned into a military disaster. Hundreds of human ships surrounded his small diplomatic fleet, their weapons powered and targeting systems locked on. Sir, Lieutenant Zara whispered, what are your orders? Veltar looked at the display showing Admiral Rodriguez's flagship. The human battleship was massive, bristling with weapons that his scientists couldn't even identify. After 46 successful first contact missions, he was facing his first complete failure. Signal all ships, he said finally. Power down weapons and comply with human orders. Dr. Kethun approached the command station with a datapad in his hands. Sir, I've been analyzing the energy signatures from their fleet. Their technology appears to be at least 50 years ahead of current galactic standards in several areas. How is that possible? Veltar asked. They've had 30 years to study our technology without us knowing about it, the old scientist explained. They could observe our strengths and weaknesses, then develop counters for everything we do. Meanwhile, we knew nothing about their capabilities. On the main screen, Ambassador Chen was watching their surrender with calm satisfaction. Commander Veltar, I think we can now have the honest conversation that should have started 3 days ago. What do you want? Veltar asked. What we've always wanted, Chen replied. To join galactic civilization as equal partners. The difference is that now you understand we have the strength to insist on equality. Admiral Rodriguez's voice came through the communication system. All galactic vessels have powered down their weapons. Boarding teams are standing by for inspection. That won't be necessary, Admiral, Chen said. I think Commander Veltar understands the situation now. She turned back to face Veltar directly. Commander, let me explain what's going to happen. Humanity is joining the Galactic Council, but not as a subordinate member species. We're joining as a founding-level partner with full voting rights and veto power over Council decisions. The Council will never accept those terms. Veltar protested. The Council will accept whatever terms allow them to avoid a war they can't win. Chen replied calmly. Because this fleet represents only a fraction of human military capabilities. Dr. Kethan looked up from his analysis. How many ships do you actually have? Colonel Harrison answered from his position off-screen. Classified. But I can tell you that we've been preparing for this conversation for a very long time. Chen nodded. Humanity learned early in our history that peace is only possible when potential enemies know the cost of aggression. We call it peace through strength. But your colonies, Lieutenant Zara said, 17 star systems? How did you manage interstellar colonization without faster-than-light communication? Who said we don't have faster-than-light communication? Chen asked with amusement. Lieutenant, humanity developed quantum entanglement communication 20 years ago. Every human colony is in constant contact with Earth and with each other. Veltar felt sick. You've been building an interstellar empire while pretending to be a primitive single-planet civilization. We've been preparing to meet our galactic neighbors as equals, Chen corrected. The fact that you assumed we were primitive says more about your prejudices than about our capabilities. Admiral Rodriguez spoke again. Ambassador, we're receiving communications from multiple human colonies. They're reporting successful completion of Phase 2 objectives. Acknowledged, Admiral, Chen replied. She looked back at Veltar. Commander, you should know that human fleets are currently positioned near every major galactic military installation, trade hub, and government center. We're not just revealing ourselves to you, we're announcing our presence to the entire galaxy simultaneously. Dr. Kethan's datapad beeped with an incoming message. He read it quickly, then looked up with wide eyes. Sir, I'm receiving reports from Galactic Command. Human ships have appeared at the Kepler Corridor, the Centauri hub, and the Council homeworld itself. Appeared? Veltar asked. Decloaked, Chen explained. We've been watching your major installations for years. Today we decided to introduce ourselves properly. This is an act of war against the entire galactic community, Veltar said desperately. No, Commander, Chen replied patiently. This is a negotiation. We're demonstrating that we have the capability to be either very good friends or very dangerous enemies. The choice is yours. Colonel Harrison stepped into view on the screen. Commander, human doctrine is based on a simple principle. We prefer to be allies, but we're prepared to be conquerors. Your council has spent centuries expanding through intimidation and overwhelming force. Now you're facing a species that can match your capabilities and exceed them. What do you want from us? Veltar asked again. Ambassador Chen leaned forward. We want to be partners, not subjects. We want galactic law to be based on consensus, not domination. We want member species to have real rights, not just the privilege of serving council interests. And if the council refuses? Dr. Kethan asked. Then the council will find itself dealing with a very different galaxy than the one they're used to controlling, Admiral Rodriguez answered. Humanity is not interested in ruling other species, but we won't allow anyone to rule us either. Chen stood up from her chair. Commander Veltar, you're going to return to the Galactic Council with a new treaty proposal. Humanity is offering to join galactic civilization as a full partner, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. The other species will never accept human dominance, Lieutenant Zara protested. We're not asking for dominance, Chen replied. We're asking for equality. Every member species will have the same rights we're claiming for ourselves. The age of council supremacy is over. Veltar studied the human ambassador. Despite everything that had happened, she didn't seem angry or aggressive. She spoke with the calm confidence of someone who held all the advantages and knew it. Why reveal yourselves now? He asked. You could have remained hidden for decades longer. Because hiding was always a temporary strategy, Chen explained. Eventually, someone would have discovered our colonies or our deep space monitoring stations. We preferred to reveal ourselves when we were ready, rather than being discovered by accident. And you're ready now? Chen smiled. Commander, humanity has been ready for this conversation since the day we detected your first trade convoy 30 years ago. Every human colony, every ship, every defensive installation was built with this moment in mind. Dr. Kethan looked at his displays again. The level of coordination this would require, the industrial capacity, the strategic planning. Humanity has always been good at long-term projects, Colonel Harrison said. We spent centuries preparing to leave our homeworld. We spent decades preparing to meet galactic civilization. We don't do anything halfway. Admiral Rodriguez's voice crackled over the communication system one more time. All galactic vessels are cleared to depart. Safe travels, Commander Veltar. We look forward to more productive negotiations in the future. Ambassador Chen walked to the viewport and looked out at the space between the two fleets. Commander, I want you to understand something important. Humanity doesn't want to be your enemy. We want to be your partners in building a better galactic civilization, but that partnership has to be based on mutual respect, not fear. And if we can't provide that respect? Veltar asked. Chen turned back toward him, and for a moment her diplomatic mask slipped. Beneath the pleasant exterior, Veltar saw something that made him understand why humanity had spent 30 years preparing for war. Then you'll learn what it means to face a species that has never lost a war, she said quietly, but I hope it doesn't come to that. As the human delegation prepared to return to their ship, Dr. Kethun approached Ambassador Chen with one final question. "Why did you wait until now to reveal your military capabilities?" he asked. "You could have demonstrated your strength from the beginning." Chen paused at the docking port. "Because we hoped you would choose cooperation over domination, Dr. Kethun. Humanity believes in giving people the chance to do the right thing voluntarily before we make them do it involuntarily." "And now?" "Now the galaxy knows that there's a new player in the game," she replied. "One that can't be intimidated, conquered, or ignored. What happens next depends on how quickly the Galactic Council adapts to that reality." As the human ships began to disperse throughout the solar system, Commander Veltar began composing his report to Galactic Command. It would be the most important document he had ever written, because it would determine whether the galaxy's future held cooperation or conflict. The first line read, "The integration of humanity into galactic civilization requires immediate revision of all existing protocols. They are not like any species we have encountered before, and they never were." In the depths of space, hidden human fleets maintained their positions around major galactic installations, waiting to see how the Council would respond to humanity's demands for equality. The age of easy galactic dominance was over. The question now was whether galactic civilization was mature enough to accept partners instead of subjects. Humanity was prepared for either answer,